and I play a lot of free-to-play games, and I especially love the shooters. There's so many weird and wacky things you can do, especially when you just jump in with your friends, you know, with the Discord. Links in the description, by the way. If you want to jam with us during the streams, it's just such a pleasure, absolutely, and I know why you guys are looking for these games. I've got a weird mix of genres here as well. One game per genre. This is kind of an all-time list, but it's not historic-based. This isn't like I'm going to look back at like Evolve or Block and Load. As much as I love those games, they're not going to make the list because they have no population, and stuff like Nosgoth doesn't exist anymore. So these are games that are current. Yes, it's all-time. It's not just this year. It's not just upcoming or new games, but all-time as in you can still freaking play them. These are just uncontestedly, in my opinion, the best free-to-play shooters. I could do right by you guys with this list, but again, lots of different kind of shooters, lots of different games. Hopefully you can find one that you can jam to. All right, guys, starting out our list and hopefully setting the tone for the rest of it, we have a murdery, mystery, Saw-like Predator-ish type of game called Deceit. The idea is that one person is a monster, except you don't know who the monster is. It's a co-op shooter game where you are trying to figure out who the monster is, or if you are the monster, just, you know, try to eat the faces of everyone else. Like, no, I'm totally human, guys. Don't worry, I'm not trying to murder you, but, you know, when the lights go out, I might murder you. So Deceit, yeah, it's a game of Deceit. And there's a few other games like this. It's a whole branching genre that I'm actually really falling in love with right now. So the shooter mechanics is kind of just there as a vehicle, but I do kind of want to explain it away. So because it is first person, you can never look everywhere all at the same time. You're never going to have all of the information. You have to actually follow different people and watch what they're doing and specifically have a specific point of view, which is kind of the point in a shooter. And so, you know, if you're the monster, you can kind of scoot around, hide around. It's kind of a stealthy type of game. You want to get the blood, make sure no one's watching you, and everyone else needs to, you know, use shooting mechanics to actually solve some different puzzles as they go through the campaign. It's actually very important and intertwined, but not enough to make it higher on the list, but still, you know, I think it does count as a proper shooter, and I think you'll have some fun with it. Alright dudes, next up we have Warthunder. Now another weird game that a lot of people weren't expecting probably on a shooter list, but Warthunder, more than most if not all of the vehicular combat games, requires aim, and I really actually appreciate its aiming mechanics. It does make it pretty easy to use even with mouse and keyboard, where a lot of vehicle games, it's like, okay, yeah, I'll use mouse and keyboard for on foot, and then I'll switch to joystick or, you know, something else for the flying. It becomes very awkward, but Warthunder really pioneered, I think, a lot of very sane mechanics so that people can really jump into the game. Now, I don't know how you guys feel about the monetization and the grind required in this title, but there's a lot of content. There's a lot to play. There's a lot under the hood mechanically as well. A whole lot to digest with this title, let alone its shooting mechanics is actually pretty good. And also considering other vehicular combat games, I feel like there is a great variety despite it being historical based, you know, with the flying, with the tanking, with all of that. And normally if you go to a direct competitor like World of Tanks, you then also have to jump from, you know, World of Warplanes, World of Warships to get really the proper mix that War Thunder all has right there in a singular free-to-play package. Next up, coming in at number 8, I have Heroes and Generals. Now, this game almost was dead on arrival. It was really janky, really awkward, but it had a really cool concept. It's sort of like this meta, mappy, almost an MMO, but not quite exactly kind of game. It's basically Battlefield 1 before Battlefield 1 even came out. It's this historical shooter that's big team battle, and it has this weird system with this map resource management and very disbalanced, mixed-matched matchmaking. It's strange. It is played in lobbies, so don't confuse it with a proper MMO, but it is one of the few historically, you know, aesthetic shooters out there that's also free to play that also has these really big team battle mechanics. So even if it's not the perfect game, I know it has a lot of mixed reviews, it goes up and down, it still has a consistent population just because of its true uniquity, and this kind of genre has some pretty hardcore fanatics. So if you like this stuff, if you got a hard on for this kind of stuff, I can't believe you're not already playing Heroes and Generals. Next up, we have PlanetSide 2. Now, the tragedy of PlanetSide 2 and why it's not higher despite it being an MMO, which is hella unique, there's barely any first-person MMOs, let alone a proper full FPS MMO. PlanetSide 2, though, has a waning population, and I'm not really too sure of why that is. I wish the graphics were enhanced a little bit, but I'm only being so critical as soon as we're starting this out because PlanetSide 2 could have been so amazing, so big, and it kind of used to be, but in the end, it actually is still pretty easy to just jump in immediately and get some big action that you're not going to get pretty much in any other game. You're not going to have these numbers. You're not going to have this explosivity. You're not going to have this insanity, which is maybe a reason why a lot of noobs get wrecked. That's okay though. In the end, I think there's a lot of progression, there's a lot of content with the different vehicles, there's so much to master in this game actually, and just the fact that it is the only, in my opinion, proper MMO FPS is why, even though it does have a waning population, it's still on the list because you can still play it at least technically, and what you're going to play, you're not going to get that anywhere else. Alright guys, we got a game that has been in a few top 10s, and that's going to be warbrokers.io. That's right guys, a browser-based shooter is making the list of my favorite top 10 free-to-play shooters. As somebody who really loves competitive, very serious shooters, I'm also, as you can tell from the list so far, somebody who really appreciates uniquity, originality, and just playing different things, and of course, being free. When you want to play a free game, you want to have easy access to it, and there's literally nothing more easier to access than a free-to-play game that's played in the browser. You just type in warbrokers.io, and boom! You know, you join in with your Discord, join in with your party, your guild, whatever, and you're having a big team battle blast here with Warbrokers. So it's very reminiscent of something like Battlefield Heroes. It's not as cheesy, it's a little bit more down to earth. Kind of reminds me of Battlefield 2 with a lot of the map design, and of course, the vehicles, you know, from helicopters to the, the tanks, and then you have the modern era of weapons, but it's still in this really cheesy, cartoony, blocky art style that, I don't know, I think it actually looks really clean. I think it runs pretty freaking great. I tested out all the other browser shooters, some older, some newer, and in the end, I'm gonna have to say Warbrokers is my favorite browser-based shooter, and it's definitely in the contention of top 10 free-to-play shooters of all time. Alright dudes, halfway on our list now, we have Unturned. This is basically what DayZ wish it could have been. This game came out of nowhere. It actually spawned from a Roblox minigame that this guy created. It was actually a younger man, and he just kind of made this little zombie game. Then it turned into a full-fledged game. He produced it, put it on Steam, and ever since then he's been updating it and crafting it into something freaking awesome, actually, that's still really popular. Now, it does have this really cheesy art style, but as you know, I like that kind of thing. I like, games that are really clean, easy to go, anybody of any age can play. Absolutely, Unturned is basically the H1Z1 DayZ, the War Z, Infection Survival, all those other games basically try to do way too much, bit off way more than they can chew, and Unturned just spit out something freaking good instantaneously. A lot of those games had really janky vehicles or none at all. Unturned was the first to put them in. Unturned was like the first to actually come out, actually be free to play, actually, work. So that's why it's so high on the list, that's why it's so popular. But not only does it just happen to work, but it actually has a lot of really interesting mechanics, a lot going for it, and I think you guys should definitely be checking it out if you haven't, because you thought, oh, it's just for kids, it's a kids DayZ. No, actually, this is what DayZ wish it could have turned into. Yeah, we're going to talk about Team Fortress 2 now, the big bad 4 here. It's a little lower in the list because it's kind of a little bit dated. There's some direct competitors, free-to-play or otherwise, that I think do the job better, at least in terms of competition. But what Team Fortress 2 will maybe always have an edge on is going to be those custom servers, those weird, wacky surfing maps, those weird game modes like the Halloween PvE competitive stuff, and we're actually seeing direct inspiration of that being put into Overwatch and some other games. But Team Fortress 2 has man versus machine, which I could have put on some other action